Hello, and welcome to the Afterspark podcast, an episode-by-episode recap of the Generation 1 Transformers cartoon. I'm Els.
And I'm Specs.
And today, we are going to be talking about episode number 85, The Ultimate Weapon. Let's talk about giant robots today, shall we?
Oh, and that ultimate weapon of theirs. So, this episode opens with a French gang waging war on the hovels and windmills of the Netherlands.
You see, we know they're French because they have berets and tiny mustaches.
Oh yeah, that shows they're French.
Obviously.
So the French gang then drive haphazardly into the middle of a small hamlet and start shooting erratically with laser guns.
A little old lady tending her garden just casually pulls out yet another laser gun from a bag and blows out one of the tires of the French gang's car.
The scene then cuts to the Autobots watching this all play out on Teletran, and Hotspot comments on it not making much sense.
You're telling me!
Hotspot, the viewer stand-in for this episode, because I am so confused.
No kidding. I'm like, what? How are... I want to see the notes. I want to see the notes. I want to see the storyboards. I want to know what the fuck happened here and how we got there.
I want to know how this opening got pitched.
Yes! Regardless, Rodimus orders the Protectobots to get on it, solve this problem for me.
They arrive on the scene to a shootout with the French gang and who we think is the army of, I guess, the Netherlands?
Possibly the police, but they looked green when I tried to rewind and look at them, so I'm going to assume it's the army. It's not really important. Streetwise then hurls a garbage can at the gang.
Ultra Magna.
This breaks up the firefight.
Any port in a storm, I guess, or any way to stop a shootout. God. Ultra Magnus comments to Rodimus that Rodimus may have been too hard on the Protectobots.
Rodimus agrees, but he seems to feel a little crushed by his current responsibilities right now.
But you're doing a wonderful job, Ultra Magnus replies, as he and Rodimus walk through the smoking streets of the small hamlet.
He also says that Rodimus is every bit as good as Optimus Prime ever was.
And yet the smoke in the background from the smoking hamlet that they are currently inhabiting says otherwise.
Still inhabiting.
Yeah. Blades pops up and says that there's a skirmish up ahead before he is then shot down by Galvatron, who's here apparently.
Yeah, those French gangs, they were a distraction from the true villainy. And I also had a moment of, I see French Welker. No. I also had a moment of, I see Frank Welker is voicing yet another character because Blades just straight up sounds like Fred from Scooby-Doo.
Hooray.
So, stop shooting yourself, buddy.
Mm-hmm. Streetwise has a disturbing face with strong, sensual lips that are far too high on his head for a man with no nose.
Why does this Transformer look like he's gotten Botox?
There is a limited configuration of facial features they can go with, and they can't make everyone look too much alike.
But, he's the second fullest lips I think I've ever seen on a Transformer.
We need to make this guy kissable, okay? Galvatron is joined by additional Decepticons, including the Combaticons, Cyclonus, Predaking, and Octane, who I guess is a Decepticon? Again?
Yes. Streetwise and Hotspot are trying to protect some nearby innocent children, while First Aid retrieves Blades to take him back to Metroplex for emergency repairs.
It's really funny how he gets Blades out of there too. He just, picks him up, and then transforms, midway through, so he's just in a vehicle mode with a helicopter on his roof.
Not tied down or anything. I'm sure it'll be fine on the highway. Don't worry about it.
This is a terrible choice, It's important to secure your loads, First Aid. It's important.
Steeljaw and Ramhorn are apparently working for Ultra Magnus today without a blaster in sight, tackling Galvatron's gun mode on Ultra Magnus's command.
Both sides are ducked down behind rows of houses and just shoot at each other for a while, like they're on opposites. They're in trenches on opposite sides of no man's land.
Galvatron finally buries Rodimus in rubble, spouts some nonsense about an ultimate weapon, and flies off.
First Aid is able to get Blades back to Metroplex, where he works on getting him repaired.
When suddenly, a wild Swindle appears.
We actually see a few of Metroplex's dudes again, extremely briefly, before Swindle disables them.
First Aid is able to catch up with Swindle, but not before Swindle grabs what he came here for, which was Metroplex's T-Cog.
Which is
Bad.
Yeah, it's gonna put a bit of a crimp on Metroplex's social plans if he's got any. First Aid, being a pacifist, refuses to fight back, and Swindle knocks him down, taking the T-Cog and leaving, Metroplex stuck in city mode. And I guess Blades was just hanging out, possibly unconscious.
Yep, I feel like he had just finished fixing him and he was in the med bay, but I don't remember entirely. And
neither do I.
Again, it's been 2 months since we watched this because of all the problems, like my computer and COVID.
Life was problems recently.
Yeah. Elsewhere, Triptychon rises from the depths and plays the world's most one-sided game of Battleship, tearing up and sinking several.
I don't want to contemplate the body count here.
Me neither.
Swindle arrives and shows us conclusively that he has no sense of self-preservation, trying to charge Galvatron for the T-Cog that he was presumably ordered to get.
Yes, and this goes about as well as you might expect, including Galvatron's remark about Swindle's payment being his life. So, he'll live to regret this little moment.
Swindle tries to play it off like he was joking.
And no one believes that. Nobody who has ever met Swindle since the beginning of time believes that.
Definitely none of the other Combaticons do, after what the hell he did in
Let me just sell your bodies for some quick cash, no biggie.
And
or
also
not.
Brawl's brain.
Yeah, I was like, and your brain.
Galvatron leads Triptychon towards the now defenseless Metroplex.
Triptychon nearly smashing several humans along the way.
Back at Metroplex, First Aid is having an existential crisis of morality. So First Aid here is in his pacifist phase, which we never get to see again, unfortunately. We'll never speak of it again after this episode.
The other Autobots are surprisingly supportive of him being a pacifist, but First Aid feels guilty about the possibility of Metroplex getting hurt because he refused to fight Swindle, so he leaves.
Rodimus again laments how much he hates his job, seeing that he can't even keep the Autobots together.
Hotspot briefly has a mouth. All the mouths are wrong in this episode. And I'm not just talking about weirdly lipped man. I also mean that Cyclonus' mouth went bye-bye for a few shots earlier, and it was very strange looking.
Yeah. The Autobots catch up with Triptychon, but the Protectobots are unable to fully form Defensor without First Aid on account of he's the arm. They're kind of out on a limb without him.
He's almost attacked by Menasor, but the other Autobots grab Menasor's attention instead, allowing Defensor to catch a train in a rather physics-defying way with one arm.
Yeah, that's probably going to have a pretty significant body count, too, if it's a passenger train.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because I don't think those have seatbelts, typically.
I mean, they certainly probably were safer with him catching them than whatever the fuck Triptychon was gonna do, but I still can't imagine it was good.
Well, it's just, without seatbelts, everyone in that train is a projectile in the train, so no one's having a good time. Even if they were caught by the gentle robot hands of steel.
Yeah, giant robot, but you don't understand. Giant metal robot hands solve everything. There is only one time, I think, in this entire show where a human getting thrown or dropped fucking matters. And it's season 4, so we're not there yet. But I assure you, it's almost as stupid as Optimus nearly getting killed by a hill.
Yeah. We just got reminded of that episode today. It's the Aerial Bot's turn, with Silverbolt being able to enter Triptychon's mouth and shoot him from the inside, which, honestly, is a hell of a maneuver.
Yeah. With Triptychon wounded, Galvatron orders a retreat while shouting about still having the upper hand.
Rodimus laments they'll still need First Aid to install Metroplex's T-Cog, even if they could get it back.
Hotspot says he'll try to talk to him, while Rodimus just hopes this works.
Shouldn't they have spares?
Spare doctors? Yes, but the problem is Ratchet died.
Yes, but I mean,
Ratchet,
even
Wheeljack,
being able to make new parts, even if it's just this one dude who uses something this size. The fact that it could break, makes sense that they'd have
Well, yeah, I don't
spares.
know. Maybe they're difficult to make.
Maybe. I mean, maybe they just don't have time to call up Cybertron and get a new one.
That's true. Or it would still, well, no, they can bring goods through a space bridge, but I feel like we never see the space bridge,
you don't.
space bridge again in season 3. Like, it's always flying back and forth between Earth and Cybertron.
And maybe the Decepticons just destroyed the space bridge somewhere between the end of the cartoon,
Yeah.
season 2, and the movie.
That would be my assumption.
Yeah. Or maybe it just got banned by the Earth governments. That would be funny.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you have to dismantle this now. So, sometime later, we see Spike in an oddly painted Ultra Magnus and Daniel in a similarly odd-looking Rodimus driving up to Vortex, who seems to be guarding a road.
Daniel tries to feed him a line about how they're workmen, here to fix Triptychon, but Vortex ain't buying it.
Going so far as to spell them and smelling Autobot fumes. So pure, so pollutant-free! And the Autobots, they be running on green fuel, y'all.
So the Decepticons are Captain Planet villains, or at least 80s villains. So,
I mean,
God, that's funny.
that wouldn't be the worst crossover between Captain Planet and and Transformers. I'd watch it.
I mean, it would be interesting because the Autobots would initially seem like enemies to the Planeteers. Too,
Yeah,
probably.
yeah.
Because, I mean, hey, they're big war machines.
Well,
even
and
if
then,
they are
I don't
peaceful.
know how much you remember the Captain Planet show, but like it always ended with a, here's what you can do to make it better. And so it would be like swapping the Autobots to electric or something.
Well, in modern times
Yes,
now,
yes,
you
not
know.
the 80s, in modern times.
So, Vortex picks Rodimus up and begins violently shaking him, demanding the truth.
Shaking him so hard, he shakes Daniel right out the window.
Seatbelts, the heroes we deserved, and the heroes we never got in this show on account of it came out in the 80s prior to them,
Being required.
yes, being mandatory.
Rodimus and Ultra Magnus transform, immediately reverting their paint colors to normal.
And Ultra Magnus's soft robot hands. We love those soft robot hands. They immediately catch Daniel once again, safely.
Of course. More Decepticons drive up, and Rodimus and Ultra Magnus lead them away so Spike and Daniel can enter Triptychon unnoticed.
They manage to grab Triptychon's T-Cog, but run straight into Cyclonus.
Don't worry though, Spike rolled a nat 20. They get out of that situation, and Cyclonus did not even recognize them.
They did the ultimate, like...
Look, if you look like you're supposed to be
Yeah,
there, nobody questions it.
Yeah, they did the equivalent of walking in with, clipboards to do evaluations and walked out getting all that sweet information they were trying to steal, except in this case it was an actual physical thing that I think they fit in a lunchbox.
Don't worry about it. Unfortunately, Cyclonus comes upon the location where the T-Cog should be, which is obviously not right now.
Yep. Spike and Daniel are able to get out without issue and are picked up by Ultra Magnus and Rodimus, who presumably have disabled Vortex for the moment.
Yeah, they did more than that. You see, Galvatron is upset with the Stunticon's apparent failure at capturing the two Autobots as he finds them all knocked out on the ground. So yes.
Yeah. He even kicks poor Dragstrip into a tree.
Because Dragstrip needed yet more head trauma.
Well, he's not the one that drives it. Well, they might all drive into things, but I don't
Let's
think
be honest.
he's the worst one.
All the Stunticons have head trauma, probably.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they've got that force shield thing going for them probably does not stop the insides of their heads getting rattled around.
Yeah.
Cyclonus informs Galvatron of the T-Cog theft.
But don't worry, they've got a plan.
Said plan is installing Metroplex's T-Cog in Triptychon.
There are issues with this, and Triptychon doesn't seem to be able to transform back into city mode, but I mean, if you have to be, it's stuck in one mode.
I guess. I mean, I guess they just have incompatible hardware.
Or something.
So, I mean, the Autobots try installing Triptychon's T-Cog inside Metroplex, who has similar transformation issues, so yeah, it seemed like a hardware issue.
Yeah, unfortunately though, Metroplex is having a much harder time staying in bot mode, which is kind of important when you have to fight Robo Godzilla.
Yeah, but I mean, his favorite thing to do is apparently being a city, so
Yeah.
we'll catch up, when we catch back up with First Aid, who is staying in a junkyard on Earth with a robot that may or may not be a Cybertronian who's in charge of it.
We never see this robot again. We have no idea what's going on here. That is the scene.
Is this the equivalent of First Aid just bunking with his Tinder date?
Regardless, Hotspot arrives to ask First Aid to come back to the Autobots.
Well, First Aid apparently says yes, because Blades airdrops First Aid into Metroplex, who is then able to reset the cog to allow Metroplex to transform freely. Maybe he had to do a hardware or software update for this.
You know, it just had to be configured. And he is the only IT guy.
Somehow, oh god, Perceptor is just off doing stuff. He's off on the other side of the planet. He probably could have fixed this.
Probably cuts to Percy's probably on Cybertron is probably the actual answer.
Yeah.
Like every time we've seen him, typically he's on Cybertron. So that's my actual guess.
Yeah, that would make sense. Trypticon is defeated, and Galvatron threatens to use his ultimate weapon.
Rodimus realizes that Galvatron has been bluffing and threatens Galvatron with his ultimate weapon, his mind.
Okay.
That's the name drop. That's your takeaway from this episode. I have no idea. I don't know why this was a plot point. But anyway, carrying on.
First Aid consents to remaining with the Autobots, and Rodimus realizes that, after all, he is in fact a good leader somehow.
Or something.
Yeah.
Join us next time for episode 86, The Quintessent Journal, where we see the true ultimate weapon for the evil in the universe. Capitalism.
Yep. The love of money.
The love of money.
So today, Owls has both fanfic recommendations and art recommendations for your reading and viewing pleasure.
I'm multi-talented like that. I'm kidding. But anyway. The first fic is Champion by Astalot. It is G1, it's rated G, it's Gen. There is some minor jazz prowl, but I would still consider it Gen.
It's not the focus.
Yeah. Our characters are Rumble, Megatron, Starscream, Thundercracker, Blaster, Jazz, Prowl, Soundwave, and Optimus Prime. In summary, if it was anybody's fault, it was that loser Starscream. That being said, that does not tell you anything about this fic, and I will just say one of the tags is, I believe, Underground Dance Party.
Yep.
So that's a better description. It's a wildcard fic. It does not connect with this episode in the slightest, and it's a one-shot.
Well, it connects in the sense that the opening of this episode was an absolute fucking wildcard.
Yeah. Our second fic is Special by Myeonong's Jungle Book. I feel like I butchered that. I am so sorry.
Maynon's Jungle Book, maybe?
We'll go with that. It is IDW continuity, it is rated G, it is Slash, it is Cosmos and Soundwave, which are our two characters. And in summary, Cosmos is at the center of Soundwave's attention. It's another wildcard fic. It's basically just a drabble, but it's sweet.
Let's consider that it's maybe what Cosmos and Soundwave are doing during this episode.
Well, I don't. Do we even see Soundwave in the background?
I don't remember.
You know what? But... I hope so. I hope that's what Soundwave was doing. I hope he was kicking it back with a spaceship. He deserves it. That man needs a vacation. Dealing with Galvatron 24/7. That man needs a vacation. Our fan art recommendation for today is Blue Zooms. You can find them on DeviantArt, Tumblr, and the site formerly known as Twitter. They seem to be basing a lot of their work off of IDW. I feel like they do this really wonderful thing where they hit the sweet spot of expressive robots with well-structured bodies, which, bravo. Sadly, they've been really inactive since 2022, likely due to their country's firewall, according to their media accounts. So whatever's going on in their life, I hope they're doing well. But some of the pieces we picked today were this lovely picture of Jazz, just... It's got mood. The colors are fantastic.
That Jazz has very nicely rendered lips.
Yes, but those don't scare me, you see.
The lighting is nice. It's just between his visor and his lips, those are what draws the attention.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. We've got like arena gladiator era IDW Megatron, very threatening looking, delightful.
It really reminds me of one of the official artists.
Yeah, some of their work does. And then we have this lovely, slightly more sketchy work with Skyfire and Starscream together. Looks like they're standing in like a snowstorm together.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, it's very cute.
And that just about wraps it up for us today. Remember to check us out on Tumblr or Pillowfort as Afterspark-podcast for any additional information, show notes, or links we may have mentioned. You can also find us on Twitter, or the site formerly known as Twitter, at AftersparkPod, all one word, and various other locations by searching for Afterspark podcasts such as AO3, iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube, just to name a few. And feel free to send us questions on Tumblr, YouTube, or AO3. Till next time, I'm Specs.
And I'm Alice.
Toodles! And occasionally he moonlights as a cheerleader.
And if you really wanted it, he also does stripping on the side.